It was 7:03 a.m. when Vanessa Whitman opened her phone and saw it. A notification from her sister-in-law, a simple message: "You need to see this." Still half asleep in her penthouse bedroom overlooking the Upper West Side, Vanessa tapped the link. And there it was. A photo of her husband's mistress, half naked, tucked under sheets Vanessa instantly recognized. Those weren't just any sheets. They were the custom Egyptian cotton ones she had chosen herself, the set monogrammed with her and Logan's initials. The very same bedspread that once represented love and commitment, now displayed online for the world to see on Instagram. The caption read, "Sunday mornings with him blessed mine." Vanessa's heart didn't race. It didn't stop either. It simply hollowed. After 12 years of marriage, 2 children, and an empire they'd built together, it wasn't rage that filled her first. It was silence. A suffocating, searing silence. The kind that grips your bones before the tears even form. Logan Whitman, her husband, was supposed to be in Chicago on a business trip. He had kissed her goodbye just 3 nights ago with a promise to call later. He never did. Now she knew why. Vanessa set the phone down carefully on her nightstand. She walked to the window, her silk robe trailing behind her like a ghost of the woman she used to be. Outside, the city was waking up. Taxis honked below. Joggers passed with headphones in. People living, unaware. She pressed her forehead against the glass. She didn't cry, not yet. Instead, she thought, carefully, strategically. Because if there was one thing Vanessa Whitman had mastered in her 38 years, it was restraint. Raised in a family of Manhattan lawyers, she was taught to never show your hand too early. Her mother's voice echoed, "Hold the emotion. Use it later, powerfully." So that's what Vanessa did. By 8:15 a.m., she was in her walk-in closet, changing out of her robe and into a tailored cream suit. The one she wore the day she closed the acquisition deal for Hartley Media, the very empire Logan now partially managed. She wasn't going to confront him. Not today. Not yet. She was going to gather. As she buttoned the blazer, her phone vibrated again. This time a message from her assistant, Grace. "Need anything for Monday's press release?" Vanessa smirked. "Oh, Grace, you have no idea." At 10:30 a.m. she was at the Hartley Media HQ building, glass walls gleaming under the morning sun. Her heels clicked on the marble floor like a metronome of quiet fury. As she entered the executive conference room, heads turned. She was early. She was never early. "Vanessa," one of the junior partners greeted. "Didn't expect to see you in today." She offered a polite, clipped smile. Plans changed. She slid into her leather seat at the head of the table, pulled out her iPad, and opened a browser tab. She typed in "ad slot purchase Midtown Manhattan" and began a quiet search. Because if the mistress was bold enough to post that photo publicly, Vanessa was going to respond just as publicly, only louder, classier, and with enough precision to make the city blink. At noon, Vanessa stepped out for a walk around Columbus Circle. She stood across from the giant LED billboard that overlooked the heart of the district. The same one Logan had used last quarter to promote his luxury real estate firm, Whitman & Gold. She looked up at the screen and imagined the mistress's selfie blown up in 4K definition. She imagined the tagline she would write under it. And right there, on that bustling Manhattan street, Vanessa smiled for the first time that morning. By 2 p.m., she had everything she needed. Grace, loyal and precise, had pulled the mistress's name and online history. Her name was Sienna Ray, 29 years old, a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer. She had a modest following, but frequently tagged Logan in subtle ways, never by name, always with cryptic initials and phrases like, "L makes me feel safe." Vanessa clicked through photo after photo. Rooftop cocktails, hotel bathrooms, a tan hand resting on her thigh, Logan's wedding band peeking out from under a rolled-up sleeve. He wasn't even trying to hide it. She felt her stomach twist. But it wasn't pain anymore. It was planning. Sienna's selfie had only been up for 4 hours, but already it had over 9,000 likes and 300 comments, some from friends, some from fans, and some from trolls who speculated whether he was married. Vanessa wouldn't have to say a word. She'd let the city speak for her. By 4:45 p.m., she was back in her office. Her legal team had reviewed the media usage rights, confirming she could legally purchase an ad using a version of the selfie, since it was public content and she wasn't monetizing directly from Sienna's image. The ad company had one slot left for that week, Monday through Wednesday, running every 5 minutes from 7 a.m. to midnight. Perfect. She drafted the message herself. No agencies involved, no creative directors, just her keyboard, and her wrath. Her message? Just 7 words. He cheated here. In white block font, under the bed selfie. No names, no hashtags, no logo. Just raw, undeniable humiliation. She scheduled the ad to run directly under Sienna's upcoming sponsored content because Sienna had purchased a slot herself, one that Vanessa made sure to monitor via a quiet connection at the ad agency. At 7:10 p.m., Vanessa arrived home to an empty penthouse. Logan wouldn't be back until Sunday evening. Their children were at her mother's house for the weekend. She poured a glass of wine and walked to the master bedroom. The bed still looked pristine, untouched. She sat on the edge and finally allowed herself one tear. Just one. Because come Monday morning, the city wouldn't be talking about Sienna Ray's selfie. They'd be talking about what Vanessa Whitman did with it. Monday morning came with a cool breeze and heavy anticipation. Vanessa Whitman sat in the back seat of her private car, her fingers loosely wrapped around a thermos of black coffee. She wasn't dressed like a woman in mourning, far from it. She wore a sleek black jumpsuit with a wide belt, gold hoop earrings, and a pair of cat-eye sunglasses that shielded more than just the New York glare. They protected her calm, her restraint. Her driver, Malcolm, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Columbus Circle again, ma'am?" "Yes," she replied softly, "and take the slow route. I want to see it go up." The streets of Manhattan were already buzzing, yellow cabs honking, food trucks setting up, commuters rushing to work. But for Vanessa, the city was frozen in prelude. She could feel it, the weight of something about to erupt. At exactly 7 a.m., her car turned the final corner. And there it was, the billboard. Sienna Ray's seductive bed selfie had gone live just 2 minutes earlier, taking up the upper ad slot with her usual aesthetic, soft tones, tousled hair, playful expression. And then, 5 seconds later, the screen below it changed. He cheated here. White capital letters on a stark black background, placed strategically under the exact image Sienna had posted. Same lighting, same pose, same expression. It was subtle but vicious, and people noticed. Pedestrians stopped. A few pulled out their phones, some gasped, others snickered. Even those who didn't know the context could sense the impact. There was something so raw, so unapologetically deliberate about it. From the safety of her tinted car window, Vanessa watched a woman nudge her friend and point upward. "Is that her? That influencer chick?" "Oh my God, look at the message under it." Vanessa sipped her coffee slowly. Her heart didn't race, her breathing remained steady. This wasn't revenge. This was truth, presented plainly, without theatrics. She asked Malcolm to park a block away. "I'll walk from here," she said. "Ma'am, are you sure?" "I'm sure." By 7:20 a.m., she was standing across the street, blending into the crowd. She knew the press would pick up the story within hours, maybe even minutes. But for now, she was a silent observer in the theater of her own pain. Suddenly her phone buzzed. It was Logan. "Logan Whitman. Where are you? I need to talk. Urgent." She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she turned her gaze to the billboard again. The loop had started over. Sienna's selfie, followed by Vanessa's message. The timing was synchronized perfectly. Her inbox was filling up rapidly. Friends, clients, even journalists. One from New York Times Style wrote, "Did you authorize the LED response under Sienna Ray's ad? Is this a statement? Would love an official quote for publication." Vanessa smiled, not because she was proud, but because everything was unfolding with precision. Her plan wasn't about destruction, it was about clarity. By 8 a.m., Logan stormed into Hartley Media's executive lobby. His face was flushed, his collar unbuttoned. Security let him through without question. He was still part owner, after all. Vanessa was already waiting in the boardroom, calm, ready. He slammed the door behind him. "What the hell is this, Vanessa?" She looked up from her notepad. "Good morning, Logan. Don't play games with me. That billboard, are you out of your mind?" She closed her notepad slowly and folded her hands on the table. "Do you deny it?" He paused. "Deny what?" "Sleeping with Sienna, posting photos in our home, using my bed, our bed, as a prop for her social media?" Logan hesitated. His silence was confirmation. Vanessa stood. "I'm not here to argue, Logan. I didn't put your name on that screen. I didn't tag her account. I didn't even break any laws. But you, she walked slowly toward him, voice calm but deadly. You broke your vows, our home, and my trust. His face reddened further. You just humiliated me in front of the entire city. She smiled faintly. I didn't humiliate you. You did that all on your own. I just spotlighted it. Meanwhile, across town, Sienna Ray was waking up in her luxury apartment, completely unaware of the storm brewing outside her curated bubble. Her phone was blowing up. Over 50 DMs, hundreds of tagged comments, mentions from gossip accounts, confused followers, meme pages. What is happening? She muttered, scrolling through her feed. Then she saw it, screenshots of the billboard, her photo, and the text underneath. He cheated here. Her mouth fell open. No, 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 she called Logan. He didn't pick up. Back at Hartley Media, Logan had dropped into one of the boardroom chairs, defeated. You planned this, didn't you? He said bitterly. You set this up perfectly. Vanessa didn't respond. She just gathered her things. I'm not filing for divorce yet, she said as she moved to the door. Logan looked up sharply. You're not? No, she replied coldly, because I want the truth on public record first. I want every detail laid bare, every lie, every name. She stopped at the door. And when I do leave, Logan, there won't be a penny or a piece of your reputation left untouched. Outside, the city was alive with whispers. By noon, hashtags were trending. He cheated here, Vanessa Whitman, billboard revenge. People across the country were reposting the image, analyzing the elegance and ruthlessness of the message. News outlets began running headlines. Mystery woman calls out cheating husband with viral billboard campaign. Who is the wife behind the he cheated here scandal? A masterclass in silent revenge. Vanessa never released a statement. She didn't need to. Her silence was the message. Sienna Ray had never felt this level of panic before. Not when she accidentally double-booked a brand deal. Not when her TikTok got shadow banned. Not even when she was almost caught at Logan's house that night. Vanessa came home early from a conference. This was worse. Much worse. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Followers were sending the billboard image to her DMs non-stop. Her agency called twice. One of her sponsors pulled out, no explanation, just a change in direction. Gossip sites were dragging her name through the mud, calling her a bed selfie homewrecker. The worst part? No one was saying Logan's name. It was her face, her body, her shame. And Logan wasn't answering. She stared at the text she had sent him 2 hours ago. We need to talk. Now. I didn't sign up for this. Still no reply. She slammed her phone down, shoved on a blazer over her loungewear, and ordered a car. If Logan wouldn't come to her, she would go to Vanessa. She didn't want drama. She wanted control back. Meanwhile, at Hartley Media, Vanessa was calmly finishing her second cappuccino as she reviewed quarterly reports. Her team was bustling with nervous energy. Everyone had seen the headlines. No one dared bring it up to her. But the glances, the hushed whispers, they were everywhere. Grace, her assistant, approached with an iPad in hand. There's a woman in the lobby, she said carefully. She says her name is Sienna Ray. She's asking to speak with you. Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Send her up, she said, setting her coffee aside. Grace raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? She wants clarity? She'll get it. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Sienna stepped into the executive floor. Her posture was stiff. Her hair, usually flowing in curated waves, was tied in a tight bun. She wore oversized sunglasses that failed to cover the anxiety etched across her face. Vanessa stood, composed as ever, in a soft gray blouse and ivory slacks. She gestured toward the guest chair in her office. Please sit. Sienna remained standing. You think you're clever. I don't need to think, Vanessa said evenly. I know. Sienna scoffed. You humiliated me. Vanessa's voice remained calm. I didn't put your name on a single screen. I simply put a truth in front of the world and let them decide what to feel. You ruined my image. Vanessa finally looked up. You did that when you crawled into another woman's bed and bragged about it to your followers. Sienna flushed. He told me you two were done, that you were cold, that he slept in the guest room. Vanessa tilted her head. And you believed him? Or was it just easier to believe that than admit what you were really doing? Silence stretched for several seconds. Finally, Sienna sank into the chair. I didn't know it would turn into this, she whispered. The hate, the media, the brands dropping me. I didn't expect you to respond like that. Vanessa leaned back, folding her hands in her lap. Because women like me are supposed to cry, break down, tear other women apart in private. Sienna didn't respond. But I didn't attack you, Vanessa continued. I let the public see you, the version you chose to show, the truth you were so confident in. And now what? Sienna asked, voice hoarse. What do you want from me? Nothing, Vanessa said, standing. You're not my problem. You never were. You're just the footnote. Sienna blinked. What does that mean? Vanessa walked to the window and stared out at the skyline. It means, she said slowly, that Logan isn't the only one who underestimated me. Across the city, Logan sat in his law firm's private office, refreshing his inbox every 2 minutes. He hadn't left his seat since morning. His lawyer had sent him a warning that Vanessa's team had begun internal reviews into the financials of their joint holdings. He knew what that meant. Preparation for divorce proceedings. Quiet, ruthless, thorough. The media hadn't connected his name to the scandal, yet. But the whispers had started. Investors were calling. A few clients had postponed meetings. The market, he realized, cared more about perception than truth. And Vanessa had just controlled the perception perfectly. He tried texting her again. Vanessa, please, let's talk. Privately, read. No reply. Logan wasn't just worried about his marriage anymore. He was worried about losing everything. Back in Vanessa's office, Sienna stood to leave. She hesitated at the door. I'm not a bad person, you know? Vanessa looked at her. Then prove it. How? Start by not pretending to be the victim in a story you chose to participate in. Sienna's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She left the office without another word. The elevator doors closed behind her, and Vanessa exhaled slowly. Not out of relief, but because she knew that was just the beginning. By the end of the day, the billboard had gone viral across the globe. Even celebrities were chiming in online. A famous actress tweeted, "Whoever wrote 'He cheated' here, can we give her an award already?" A tech billionaire replied, "The cleanest takedown I've ever seen. No names, no noise, just facts." And beneath it all, Vanessa watched quietly, sipping her tea. Not because she wanted attention, but because silence, when used right, could echo louder than any scream. 2 days after the billboard went viral, Vanessa Whitman sat in a private lounge at the Lenox Club, an exclusive, members-only space for the city's elite. But she wasn't here for cocktails or social gossip. She was here for the next step in her plan. Across from her sat Eleanor Maddox, CEO of Maddox Ventures, and one of the most feared businesswomen in Manhattan. Gray-haired, razor-sharp, and decades ahead of her time, Eleanor had mentored Vanessa briefly during her early years in media. Their paths hadn't crossed in a while, but Eleanor had seen the headlines, and now she was intrigued. "I must say," Eleanor said, sipping her espresso, "I haven't seen a move that elegant since the boardroom wars of the early 90s. Vanessa allowed herself a small smile. "It wasn't meant to start a war. I just wanted clarity." Eleanor leaned forward. "Clarity is dangerous when you put it on a 4K screen in the middle of Manhattan. You knew exactly what you were doing. So tell me, what's next?" Vanessa looked her directly in the eye. "I want out, but I don't want to crawl away. I want to build something that makes everything Logan's touched feel outdated." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "And you want funding?" "I want partnership," Vanessa corrected. "Not charity. I have the media contacts. I have the analytics. I have the audience now, whether I wanted it or not." Eleanor studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Send your proposal by Thursday. If it's half as sharp as your billboard, I'll back you." Just like that, Vanessa had the one thing Logan never thought she'd find after Betrayal: momentum. At Whitman & Gold, Logan was slowly unraveling. His firm had lost 2 mid-tier clients. A pending property deal had suddenly gone on hold. His partner, Marcus, had begun asking questions. "What's going on, Logan? I know you've been off since Monday." "It's personal," Logan replied, waving it off. Marcus didn't let it go. "Clients don't care if it's personal. They care if your name makes them look bad. And right now, your name is whispering through this city like wildfire." Logan leaned back in his chair, exhausted. "Vanessa's not even naming me." "That's what makes it worse," Marcus snapped. "She doesn't have to. You think people can't put 2 and 2 together? That's your penthouse. That's your bedspread. That's your mistress, the one you paraded around like a fool." Logan clenched his jaw. "I suggest you fix this," Marcus continued. before she decides to really go public, because when she does, the only thing left of you will be smoke. Back at Hartley Media, Vanessa stood before her boardroom table, marker in hand, sketching out a digital content strategy on a giant glass board. She had called in her top 3 department heads, legal, analytics, and creative, and gave each of them a single directive. Build me a brand that can't be touched. She wasn't just rebranding Hartley Media, she was transforming it. While most people were still glued to the scandal, Vanessa had already moved on to expansion plans. Her face was being recognized now. Her name was trending with power and precision. She didn't want to be the woman scorned forever. She wanted to be the woman who built an empire from ashes. I want a new vertical, she told her team. Lifestyle meets legacy. Real stories, real women, but bold. Unapologetic, not inspirational quotes over sunsets. I want truth. I want impact. Grace, her assistant, smiled. We've already started building out the domain, and traffic from the billboard, it's converting into followers fast. Good, Vanessa said. Let's make sure they're following someone worth watching. That night, Logan sat alone at the rooftop bar of the Greenwich Hotel, a glass of bourbon sweating in his hand. He hadn't heard from Sienna since she left Vanessa's office. Not that he blamed her. He had practically thrown her under the bus by staying silent. He had thought he could manage it. Keep his wife pacified, keep his mistress happy, and keep his name intact. Instead, he had underestimated Vanessa. Deeply. His phone lit up. Unknown number. You should check what your wife's building. It's bigger than you think. He frowned, tapped the link attached. A landing page opened. The title, Madeira, a sleek design, powerful images of women. Headlines like, Rewriting What Legacy Looks Like, Stories They Tried to Silence, Built by Women Who Don't Flinch. And at the bottom, Founder, Vanessa Whitman. His stomach dropped. This wasn't just a personal vendetta. She was starting a movement. The next morning, Eleanor Maddox called Vanessa. I read your proposal, she said. It's ruthless. I like it. Does that mean we're in business? I'll have my lawyers draft the agreement, but consider this your official green light. Vanessa exhaled. Thank you. Eleanor paused. One last question. Do you want this empire to make him regret it or forget he ever existed? Vanessa didn't hesitate. Both. By Friday morning, the buzz surrounding the billboard had quieted, but Vanessa Whitman's name hadn't. While most viral moments fade in 48 hours, Vanessa's had grown legs. Because she didn't just spark gossip, she planted strategy. Her new platform, Madeira, launched in beta overnight, and the early analytics were staggering. Nearly 400,000 unique visitors had landed on the site within 12 hours. Click-through rates were off the charts. Brand inquiries were piling in from companies that wanted to be part of her message. More importantly, the women, readers, viewers, consumers were showing up, and not just to watch, to belong. Vanessa sat in her new glass-walled creative suite on the 32nd floor of Hartley Media's Annex building. Her hair was swept up, a Madeira-branded mug sat next to her laptop. She wore no makeup beyond mascara. She looked effortless, and for the first time in years, powerful on her own terms. Grace entered the room holding a report folder. We just hit 1.2 million impressions, she said with a grin. And someone from Vogue just asked for an interview. Vanessa nodded but didn't smile. Let them wait. Grace paused. Are you okay? I'm focused, Vanessa said, eyes still on the screen. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about building something that outlives the scandal. She tapped her keyboard, switching tabs. On one screen, her upcoming content strategy. On another, a list of key real estate investors. She hadn't told anyone yet, but Madeira wouldn't just be a digital brand. She wanted physical space, events, centers, even retreats, a legacy. Meanwhile, at Whitman & Gold, Logan stood staring out of his office window. He had just gotten off the phone with a commercial investor who'd backed out of a $3.5 million property deal, citing reputation uncertainty. His fingers drummed against the glass. This wasn't what he expected. He thought Vanessa would burn out, ride the sympathy wave for a few days, and then return to being the composed society wife. But she was moving like a woman with a map, his map. She was taking everything he had ever used to rise, media, narrative, public interest, and turning it into fuel for herself. And worse, she wasn't even acknowledging him publicly. Not a single name drop, not a press leak, not a tell-all interview. Just silence. Intentional, surgical silence. Logan picked up his phone and called Sienna again. She declined. He sighed and walked back to his desk, where a new article blinked on his screen. Madeira, the media platform redefining modern womanhood, led by a name you thought you knew. Underneath it, a headline he didn't expect. Whitman and Gold struggles in face of PR fallout. He slammed the laptop shut. That afternoon, Vanessa took a call in her private conference room. On the screen was Julia Trent, a marketing executive at Asara Beauty, one of the largest global skincare brands. "We love what you're doing," Julia said, "especially the tone. It's sharp, it's real, and it doesn't beg for pity. That's rare." "I'm not interested in pity," Vanessa replied calmly. "I'm interested in power that doesn't apologize." Julia leaned closer. "We want a partner, not just ads, a full capsule collaboration under the Madeira name, designed by you, marketed to the audience you've cultivated." Vanessa paused. "You'll give me creative control?" "Complete," she nodded. "Then we'll begin tomorrow." That evening, she returned home to the penthouse, the same one where Sienna had posted her infamous selfie. She had considered moving out, starting fresh elsewhere, but something in her resisted. This was her space, her design, her story. Why should she give it up just because someone else invaded it? The living room was quiet, sun dipping behind the skyline. She walked into the bedroom, paused, then opened a drawer. Inside was the wedding photo Logan had hidden after their first argument about trust, back when he had deleted a few harmless DMs and told her she was being paranoid. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she placed it face down and shut the drawer. Later that night, at a high-end lounge in Soho, Logan met with Marcus and a crisis PR consultant. "You need to get ahead of this," the consultant said, scrolling through a tablet. "Even without your name directly involved, people know, and she's not going to stop." Logan gritted his teeth. "She hasn't even mentioned me." "Exactly," Marcus muttered. "That's what makes it lethal. She's not reacting, she's building." The consultant spoke again. "If you want to salvage your public persona, you need to get on her level. Make a gesture, something visible, humble." Logan scoffed. "You want me to apologize on a podcast? Or in an op-ed," the consultant offered. "Or at a charity event. Something to reframe you as reflective, changed." Logan leaned back in his chair. "She wants to erase me." "No," Marcus said quietly. "She already has." Back at her apartment, Vanessa reviewed the final Madeira partnership contracts. She had her legal team vet everything, every clause, every fine print. She wasn't building this empire for applause. She was building it so she'd never be at someone else's mercy again. Grace peeked her head in before leaving for the night. "One more thing," she said. "You were invited to the Hudson Foundation Gala next week. It's the same one Logan is co-hosting." Vanessa looked up. "Will Sienna be there?" "Rumor says yes." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "Good. RSVP yes." Grace blinked. "Seriously?" Vanessa smiled. "Let's give the city a new headline." The night of the Hudson Foundation Gala arrived with thunder in the sky and tension in the air. It was one of New York's most exclusive social events, an annual spectacle for the city's richest, most influential, and most carefully curated. Red carpet, flashing lights, journalists stood like snipers at every turn, waiting for scandal, surprise, or spectacle. And tonight, Vanessa Whitman promised all three. She stepped out of the black SUV in a floor-length, midnight blue gown that shimmered like starlight. The dress clung to her body in all the right places, elegant, powerful, daring. Her hair was swept into a low, polished bun, and around her neck was a necklace from the Cartier high jewelry collection that hadn't even been released yet. But what made every head turn wasn't just the dress, it was who stepped out behind her. Julian Decker. Billionaire. Media mogul. Known for building one of the fastest-growing global tech empires and famously elusive in public. Rumored to be dating actresses, models, even royalty, but rarely seen at society events. Until now. He extended a hand to Vanessa as she stepped onto the marble steps, then tucked her hand into the crook of his arm like they'd done it 100 times before. The cameras exploded. Click, click, click. People whispered. Phones came out. Even the security guards looked stunned. Logan Whitman, who had been giving an interview by the champagne fountain, turned his head and froze. The reporter turned too. "Mr. Whitman, is that your wife?" Logan couldn't speak, because technically, yes. Vanessa was still his wife. But there she was, smiling confidently beside a man who was rumored to be worth double Logan's net worth. Logan's jaw clenched. Sienna, standing nearby in a pale gold gown, followed his gaze and saw Vanessa. Her smile disappeared. Inside the gala, everything sparkled. Crystal chandeliers, violin music, trays of champagne. The city's most powerful floated from one conversation to another, pretending not to watch Vanessa glide across the ballroom. Julian didn't leave her side. Every move was intentional, every glance calculated. Vanessa didn't need to say a word. Her presence spoke volumes. She was no longer the wife of Logan Whitman. She was the future. At the far end of the room, Logan finally approached her. "Vanessa," he said, barely above a whisper. She turned, raising her glass just slightly. "Logan." He glanced at Julian but said nothing. "I didn't expect to see you here," Logan muttered. She smiled politely. "It's a public gala, and I was invited." He leaned in. "Are you seriously doing this? Parading around like what?" she asked coolly. "Like a woman who knows her worth? Or like someone who refuses to be defined by someone else's betrayal?" Julian stepped slightly forward, saying nothing, but his presence was enough to make Logan take a half step back. "This isn't a game, Vanessa." "No," she replied. "This is real life. And for once, I'm the one writing the narrative." Logan's eyes narrowed. "You want war?" Vanessa looked past him, out toward the room full of whispers and flashing lights. "No," she said, voice smooth. "I want peace. You're the one who made everything a battlefield." Then she turned away. Across the room, Sienna tried to pretend she was unbothered, sipping her champagne and talking to a minor TV producer. But her eyes kept drifting toward Vanessa. Everything about her seemed untouchable now. Refined, glowing. Even standing next to Julian, Vanessa didn't seem like a rebound or a headline. She looked like destiny being reclaimed. Sienna tried to shake off the growing lump in her chest. For the first time she realized, Logan was no prize. He was collateral. Later that night, as the silent auction began, Julian leaned toward Vanessa. "You handled that with more grace than I would have." Vanessa gave a small shrug. "You can't burn a house when you've already moved out." Julian smiled. "Is that what you're doing? Moving on?" She looked at him with the calm of someone who had seen the worst and walked through it barefoot. "I'm building a whole new skyline." At 11:37 p.m., a video clip from the gala hit social media. It showed Vanessa and Julian entering together, arm in arm, Vanessa smiling as cameras flashed. No words, no drama, just presence. Within an hour, it had 2.5 million views. By morning, it had a name, The Power Walk. A viral moment that defined not just the night, but an entire narrative shift. Suddenly, Vanessa wasn't the cheated-on wife, she was a symbol of power after pain, of elegance after betrayal, of silence that spoke louder than any accusation. Meanwhile, Logan sat in his car outside the venue, watching the clip replay over and over again on his phone. He didn't look angry, he looked hollow. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, he realized what had really been taken from him. Not just the marriage, not just the reputation, but the control. He used to define her. Now she was rewriting herself, without needing to erase him. And that was what made her dangerous. By Monday morning, Vanessa Whitman had returned to her usual schedule, but everything around her had changed. Her inbox was overflowing with partnership requests. Her legal team was finalizing a property deal for Madura's first in-person summit. The Vogue interview she postponed, already being labeled the most anticipated editorial of the season. Every headline read the same undertone. She wasn't just surviving, she was taking over. But behind the scenes, a storm was building. Because Logan Whitman had reached his breaking point. He couldn't take the headlines anymore. Couldn't scroll through Instagram without seeing his wife celebrated like a queen, while his own name was slowly fading from relevance. The investors who once shook his hand with respect now nodded with caution. He had become a man under shadow. And he hated it. So he made a call, a quiet one. To a gossip columnist he'd worked with in the past, someone who specialized in exclusive leaks and whispers from inside elite marriages. The kind of stories that couldn't be proven, but were juicy enough to trend. He gave them just enough. Hints about Vanessa's supposed behavior during the early years of their marriage. Claims that she had emotionally checked out long before the affair, that she was obsessed with public image. And his final jab that her new romance with Julian was a calculated PR rebound. By Tuesday morning, the article was live. Exclusive: is Vanessa Whitman's reinvention as pure as it seems? Sources claim the Madara founder wasn't always the innocent party in her high-profile separation. The story offered no real proof, no direct quotes, just suggestive language, anonymous claims, and speculation disguised as journalism. Logan thought he had won, until he saw what Vanessa did next. At 11 a.m., Vanessa posted a single story to Madara's Instagram page. It was a photo of a crumpled printed version of the article, tossed into a recycling bin. The caption read, "If the truth scares them, they'll rewrite it. Good thing we know how to publish our own." No tags, no names, but the internet got the message. Within an hour, her fans began flooding the original article's comment section. "This is trash. Vanessa doesn't need to play dirty, she wins with class. Even her recycling has more value than this clickbait. Imagine leaking false rumors and still being irrelevant." Then came the journalists, reputable ones. One investigative writer even posted, "No evidence, no sourcing, just bitterness disguised as journalism. She deserves better than this." And just like that, the attempted smear campaign backfired. Hard. Back at Madara HQ, Grace stood at Vanessa's office door holding a tablet. "You want to address it more directly?" Vanessa looked up from her desk, where a new feature layout was open. "No. Are you sure? We could do a video, a post, even a podcast response." Vanessa shook her head. "We don't feed what we've already outgrown." Grace smiled. "I figured you'd say that." Vanessa stood, walked over to the glass wall, and looked out at the city skyline. "Let them exhaust themselves," she said quietly. "We're building. They're scrambling." But she wasn't done just yet. Later that afternoon, Vanessa walked into a meeting with her legal counsel. "I want to file for divorce," she said clearly. "No separation period?" her attorney asked. "No, immediate filing, no delays, and I want to initiate a formal audit of all joint holdings." The room went silent for a beat. "You're sure?" Vanessa didn't blink. "Logan made our marriage a performance. I'm just giving him the final curtain." That evening, Logan received a knock on his apartment door, a manila envelope. Inside, divorce papers filed, signed, delivered, with a note paper clipped on top. "It's time for both of us to tell the truth. I just prefer to do it in court." His hands trembled slightly as he set the papers down. His PR stunt had failed. His mistress had distanced herself. And now the one person he always believed would never walk away had officially done just that. Not with chaos, but with certainty. On social media, the public rallied harder behind Vanessa than ever before. They didn't just admire her power, they trusted her silence. She didn't need to clap back with words. She responded with action, with growth, with purpose. By Friday, Vanessa announced the first Madara summit to be held in Los Angeles in 6 weeks. The tagline? No more permission, just power. Tickets sold out in 3 hours. Over 800 women from across the country registered for livestream access within a single day. News outlets called it a cultural shift. Vanessa didn't respond. She was already planning the second summit. At home that night, she sat by her bedroom window, the lights of Manhattan twinkling in the distance. Julian texted her. "Proud of you. Want to celebrate?" She typed, paused, and deleted her first reply. Then wrote, "Let's celebrate when I'm not just surviving, but finished building." He responded instantly. "Then I'll be waiting. Just don't take too long. The world already knows who you are." Vanessa looked at the skyline, sipped her tea, and let the silence settle in her chest. She hadn't just won a war. She had built a kingdom while the enemy watched. 6 weeks passed faster than Vanessa Whitman had anticipated. The Madara Summit in Los Angeles had sold out, then doubled in size. The venue had been moved twice to accommodate the demand. By the time the final week arrived, Vanessa and her team had transformed a once-empty convention center into a space charged with intention. Clean white walls, bold quotes etched in gold foil, and a massive LED backdrop that read, "We are not the aftermath. We are the architects." It was more than an event, it was a statement. Women flew in from over 30 states, influencers, executives, mothers, activists, artists. Some were freshly heartbroken, others were rebuilding. Many had no public platform, but they were here to find something bigger than themselves. Vanessa stood backstage in a black tailored jumpsuit, nerves coiled in her stomach like a tight spring. Julian had offered to fly in, but she declined, not because she didn't want him there, but because this was hers. She had built this stage, and she needed to walk onto it alone. 2 minutes, Grace said, her headset tilted as she peeked backstage. Vanessa inhaled deeply. She wasn't nervous about the words. She was nervous because, for the first time, she wasn't speaking as a wife, or a businesswoman, or a name in a scandal. She was speaking as herself. The woman who'd walked through betrayal and somehow found a blueprint in the wreckage. The music faded, lights dimmed, a soft spotlight lit the center of the stage, and Vanessa stepped out. The applause started slowly, then grew. Thunderous, standing ovation before she had even said a word. She smiled, stepped to the mic, and began. "When I first realized my marriage was over, I didn't cry right away," she said, voice steady but rich with emotion. "I didn't scream, I didn't pack a bag and leave in the middle of the night." She paused. "I sat at my window with a cup of coffee and stared at a city that didn't care." Laughter rippled lightly through the crowd, but it was the kind of laughter that came from knowing. People loved to ask me what hurt most. Was it the betrayal? The humiliation? The gossip? She tilted her head. But no one ever asks what I learned. A hush settled. I learned that silence is not weakness. That dignity can roar louder than drama. That you don't have to win every argument if you're willing to win the war. Applause broke out again. She continued. I learned that forgiveness isn't something you give to someone who broke you. It's a release you give yourself, so you can stop carrying someone else's mistake as your burden. She let the words settle. And most of all, I learned this. You don't rebuild from ashes with rage. You rebuild with vision. At that line, the crowd was on their feet. Applause turned into cheers. Women wiping their eyes, others standing taller, heads nodding. Vanessa waited. Then, when the room had settled again, she gave them what they didn't know they needed. Today, you are not just an audience, she said. You are a council. You are legacy. You are witnesses to your own redefinition. She walked slowly across the stage, making eye contact, stopping now and then as if speaking to individuals. You don't need to go viral to be valuable. You don't need applause to matter. You don't need someone to choose you to start. She pointed gently to the room. You already started. You're here. A young woman in the second row covered her mouth, trying not to cry. An older woman near the back whispered to her friend, She's telling my story. Vanessa finished with a promise. I will never be the loudest voice in the room, but I will be the one building while the noise fades. The room exploded again. A full minute standing ovation, and Vanessa stood still, strong, composed, no longer a woman reacting to betrayal, but a woman leading a revolution. That evening, clips of her speech dominated social media. This woman didn't just heal, she handed out the blueprint. Every woman who's ever been dismissed needs to hear this. This wasn't a keynote. It was a reclaiming. By midnight, Vanessa's name was trending globally. The Madara site crashed twice from traffic. Asara Beauty announced they would donate 10% of all collaboration profits to a scholarship fund under Vanessa's name for women returning to the workforce after abuse or divorce. Julian texted her again. Now can I celebrate with you? She smiled and finally replied, Yes, I think we both earned it. Across the country, Logan watched the summit clips alone from his penthouse. He had considered attending anonymously. He even had a ticket, but something stopped him. Fear, shame, or the realization that Vanessa had become someone he no longer recognized. He poured a drink and clicked replay again. There she was, elegant, powerful, magnetic. Not because she had destroyed him, but because she had never needed to. She had outgrown him. Completely. And the worst part, she didn't even have to say his name. Later that week, Vanessa walked through the empty summit venue. Crews were packing up, banners came down, chairs were being folded, but in the center of the room, she stood still, soaking it in. Grace joined her with a soft smile. You did it. Vanessa shook her head gently. We did. Grace handed her a printed note that someone had left on their seat. Vanessa read it silently. I almost gave up this year. Then I saw what you built. Thank you for showing me we can start again. With grace, not just anger. She folded the paper slowly and held it to her chest. Because this was why she started. Not to be loud, not to be right, but to be a light. The morning after the Madeira summit, Vanessa Whitman thought she'd have a moment to breathe. Just one. A quiet sunrise, a cup of coffee, maybe a walk without being recognized. But peace doesn't always come when you've gone viral. She was halfway through her breakfast when Grace burst into the room holding her phone. You need to see this, she said, breathless. Vanessa reached for the phone, her instincts already sharp. On the screen was a live stream from a major morning news show, one of the most watched talk shows in America. The guest? Logan Whitman. Vanessa narrowed her eyes. The lower third read, "Exclusive. Logan Whitman breaks his silence." The host leaned in, voice syrupy and probing. "So Logan, millions of people have been following your very public unraveling. Excuse me, divorce. From Vanessa Whitman. What made you decide to speak up now?" Logan gave a rehearsed, somber smile. "I think, for a long time I was in denial, about my marriage, about what I lost, about what I did." Vanessa set down the fork. He continued, eyes glassy for the cameras. "I hurt someone extraordinary, and I watched her turn that pain into something powerful. And now I'm here not to win her back, but to tell her, if she's watching, that I'm sorry. I really, truly am." The host's eyes sparkled with delight. "Do you still love her?" He didn't blink. "I never stopped." By noon, the internet had exploded. Logan's apology just aired. Do we believe him? Should Vanessa give him a second chance? Redemption arc or publicity stunt? Hashtags started trending. Logan live, Vanessa, don't look back, he said sorry. People argued in the comments. Some swore they saw genuine remorse. Others said it was too little, too late. But Vanessa? She stayed silent, at least for the moment. That afternoon, she sat in her office reviewing a proposal from a production company that wanted to turn Modera's story into a docuseries. Grace hovered nearby. "Are you going to respond?" Vanessa didn't look up. To what? To the world asking if you're going to forgive him. Now she looked up, steady and direct. "Grace, the world didn't live in that house with me. The world didn't see the quiet lies, the disappearing hours, the woman I almost lost inside myself." Grace said nothing. Vanessa's voice softened. "This isn't about forgiveness, it's about boundaries." Grace hesitated. Still, a response might shut the door. Publicly. Vanessa stared at the window. The skyline gleamed, proud and untouchable. She stood. "Then let's close it the right way." The next morning, Vanessa appeared on the same morning show. The producers had begged for it. Originally, she had declined, but now it was necessary. She sat across from the same host, wearing a white blouse and navy trousers. Simple, grounded. Her hair was tucked behind her ears. No statement jewelry, no need. The host welcomed her with an air of anticipation. "Vanessa, it's good to have you here, especially after, well, yesterday." Vanessa smiled faintly. "Thanks for having me." The host leaned in, camera zooming. "Logan said a lot of things. He apologized. He said he never stopped loving you. Some people were moved. Others thought it was performative." She paused. "Did you watch it?" "I did," Vanessa said. "And?" Vanessa inhaled, her eyes never leaving the host's. "I think it takes courage to admit mistakes. And I respect that." The host nodded eagerly. "Does that mean?" Vanessa held up a hand gently. "But," she continued, "apologies don't guarantee access. Growth isn't a ticket back into someone's life. It's the beginning of a path, your own path." The audience fell completely silent. Vanessa went on. "I don't hate Logan. I don't wish him harm. But love isn't always a reason to stay. Sometimes it's the reason you leave." The host leaned back, visibly affected. "Wow," Vanessa finished softly. "I hope he finds peace, but I've already found mine." The applause was instantaneous. Clips of the interview spread like wildfire. Vanessa's response is what emotional maturity looks like. Best shutdown of a manipulative redemption arc I've ever seen. She didn't drag him, she elevated herself. Her words were turned into quotes, memes, TikToks. One audio snippet of her saying apologies don't guarantee access was used in over 100,000 reels by the weekend. She hadn't slammed the door. She had simply walked out of it, closed it behind her, and locked it with grace. Logan saw the interview from his hotel room. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He just sat there, phone in hand, with the weight of finality pressing into his chest. He'd tried everything to spin the narrative. But Vanessa hadn't needed to spin anything. She just told the truth, and somehow that had become more powerful than anything he'd ever built. That night, Vanessa received a call from Julian. "I watched your interview." She chuckled lightly. "Did you expect drama?" "No," he said, "but I was reminded why I respect you." She leaned against her kitchen counter. "I'm tired of being seen as the woman who got away." "Then what are you?" There was a pause. Then she answered, "I'm the woman who knew when to walk." Julian exhaled, almost a smile in his breath. "I like that woman." Vanessa didn't respond right away. Because deep down, she did too. 2 months after her final public interview, Vanessa Whitman's life looked very different. The cameras had moved on. The headlines had quieted. The hashtags weren't trending anymore. But Vanessa wasn't seeking the spotlight anymore. Because she had something better. Freedom. Mr. had grown into a multi-platform powerhouse. It wasn't just a media company, it was a movement. Her team had tripled. Her community had reached global scale. Her collaboration with Asara Beauty had outsold every previous partnership in the brand's history. But Vanessa wasn't chasing milestones now. She was building meaning. And she knew exactly where to begin. It started with a letter, not to Logan, not to the press, not even to Julian, but to herself. On a quiet Sunday morning, Vanessa sat by the large bay window in her apartment with a journal open across her lap. At the top of the page she wrote, "Closure is something you give yourself." And then she wrote everything she wished she'd known before the betrayal, before the whispers, before the spotlight. She wrote about the silence that taught her strength, the pain that taught her patience, the endings that disguised themselves as beginnings. When she finished, she didn't reread it. She folded the page and tucked it into an envelope labeled simply, "In case I ever forget who I am." That week, she finalized the purchase of a new brownstone on the Upper West Side, not because she needed more space, but because this time, the space would be hers, and hers alone. No shadows, no ghosts, no us or ours, just Vanessa. It was a quiet victory, but one that felt louder than any applause she'd ever received. Grace handed her the keys with a wink. "Finally," Grace said, "a home that fits the woman you've become." Vanessa smiled, gripping the cool brass key. "No," she replied, "a home that fits the woman I always was. I just didn't know it yet." Meanwhile, Julian Decker had kept his distance, but not because he wasn't interested, because he respected her timeline. She had told him early on, with clarity and without apology, "If this becomes a distraction from my growth, I'll walk away." He admired that. So when he texted her the night she moved into the new brownstone, "Dinner, no press, no expectations, just us," Vanessa replied, "Only if you bring dessert." He showed up with lemon tarts and a bottle of red wine. They sat on the floor, unpacking boxes and memories. No pressure, no plans, just presence. Across the city, Logan had quietly stepped down from Whitman and Gold. The scandal hadn't destroyed him, but it had exposed him. Investors no longer trusted his name. His deals began to collapse under reputation risk. His polished charm had lost its edge. And more importantly, he had finally accepted that Vanessa wasn't coming back. He saw her interview replayed once on a late-night segment and turned it off halfway through. Not out of anger, but because he finally understood the truth. She didn't leave him for someone else. She left to return to herself. At the one-year anniversary of Madera's founding, Vanessa held a private event. No cameras, no press, just women. Women who had been part of the movement from the start. Women who had written letters, shared stories, fought back, stood tall. She stood at the center of the circle, microphone in hand, but didn't speak right away. Instead, she handed the mic to a young single mother, then to a retired professor, then to a woman who had left an abusive marriage. They spoke, they cried, they laughed, and Vanessa listened. Because her power didn't come from the noise she made, it came from the space she held. Later that evening, Grace handed her a glass of champagne. "You could have built a billion-dollar empire with the attention you got." Vanessa looked around the candlelit garden. "I did," she replied, "just not in cash." Grace clinked her glass. "So what now? What's next?" Vanessa exhaled, a peaceful smile spreading across her face. "Now," she said, "now I teach other women to build without burning." The next morning, she posted one final message to her personal Madera profile. No photo, no filter, just words. "I am no longer defined by what I left. I am defined by what I chose next, and I choose myself, loudly, fully, and forever." The post garnered over 1.3 million likes, but Vanessa didn't check the notifications. She was out walking, hair loose, phone in her bag, smiling to no one but herself. So, the story has ended, our wonderful friends. Are you still here? If you are, then maybe something in Vanessa's journey touched something deep in yours. Maybe you too have been hurt, betrayed, underestimated. But here's what we learn. Closure doesn't come from the one who broke you, it comes from the one you choose to become. Like the Stoics say, no man is free who is not master of himself. And today, we watched a woman reclaim that mastery. Not with revenge, but with clarity, vision, and grace. If this story moved you even just a little, please hit that like button, drop a comment below to share what part spoke to you, and don't forget to subscribe. There are more stories coming, not just to entertain, but to help you heal, reflect, and rise. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and still shine.